sure this works. Hello, everybody. I planted a bunch of my own fans in the front, and then in hindsight, I should have given you fans, because it's really freaking hot. So first of all, it's a disaster class, and as one of my supporters just reminded me, it's okay for me to make mistakes and to melt in front of you, because that's the whole point of what I'm going to talk about today. I was going to have like audience engagement questions. It's going to be a lot of pressure on the 12 people that are left in the room. But I appreciate that you've come. And after this, just so you know, I do work with Havana Club, and I have mojitos at the bar across the street. So you're all going to be able to have a refreshing mojito at least. So is anybody working with influencers right now in the audience? Cool. And are you working with micro-influencers? Celebrity influencers. So I've done both ends of the scale there. So I do have two mottos in life. One of them is progression over perfection. And then the second one, in this kind of context, probably was a bit more relevant, but a person who is paid by a company to show and describe its products, services on social media, encouraging other people to buy them. Now, I actually don't like either one of those because I think they're too limiting, and I also think they're very much based on commercial relationships, and I think that the world has become very blurry now between press, media, influencers, content creators. So I've come up with my own definition. Influencers are anyone who has influence over another group of people, over another group of humans, to incite or inspire behavior change. Hopefully that's why I'm here. What drives me in all of my influencer projects, though, is actually how do I measure it? Because as I said, I don't have that benefit of being able to say a direct click and see sales come through. I need to kind of go out there, talk about my brand, and then inspire people to go buy it. Not me personally, though, although maybe today after this, just to lead up to the title influencer, everybody go to the bar and get a Havana Club mojito. It's just outside. But for me, the projects and trying to get attribution is sometimes a very long time later when I get a brand health tracker, and it tells me about brand awareness, unaided awareness. And then, of course, we get sales, but again, I'm working sometimes at a global marketing level, and sales are happening in a local marketing. So how do you attribute the investment? So does anybody here know who Mila Kunis is? Does anybody remember what brand Mila Kunis worked on for spirits? Nobody, audience silence. It was Jim Beam. So Mila Kunis in 2015 was one of the first big celebrity influencers that I actually worked with on a brand. She was actually quite inspirational at that point in time because whiskey was predominantly masculine, and it was a bit unique to work with her. Plus, she's actually a little bit more early in her career in terms of where she was, and was also pre-children. We had quite a bit of success. We did very traditional media content around her. We had her come to some events. And again, it was like 10 years ago when the social media context was quite different to what it is right now. But she was one of the first influencers that I kind of had a look in on what was going on with big spend. She was US focused, and I was working on Jim Beam here in the UK. So there was a very big difference in terms of the money the US had versus the amount of money that we had. But I was working globally, and then I had a very big opportunity to go from global marketing on Jim Beam into local market. It was the best learning experience of my life because I had to take things I had been working on at a very global level and start executing them into the marketplace. At that point in time, when I did go into the UK market, we were very much based on a test and learn mentality, which is one of the best things for me in terms of understanding how to push your brand forward, is try something out. I'm a big believer in fail fast, and this was the kind of the ethos of the business at the time. So I went into the brand team in the local market, and it was 2020, and as you might remember, there was a little something going on, and we were in the midst of launching this new flavor, Jim Beam Peach, and it was supposed to launch in summer. But unfortunately, summer 2020, if everybody remembers, everything was shut down, things weren't really happening, and it got delayed. So instead, Jim Beam Peach in the US had launched earlier, I think it was 2019. 2020, it was supposed to come to the UK, got delayed, and so we ended up launching it in February. Now, I have to tell you, it's a summer drink. All the cocktails are peach iced tea, long, refreshing drinks. My God, it'd be perfect on a day like today. February was not the ideal time. There was no consumer sampling because, of course, COVID. Everything was kind of on again, off again. It was February 2021 by the time we launched it. So we had a little bit of money. US had tons of cash. but we didn't. Instead, what we had a lot of creativity and a lot of guts. But we had been talking about getting involved with influencers. And again, how were we going to do that? We had a very small budget. I had something like 5,000 pounds. I had zero money. We had 20,000 pounds going into meta advertising. And we were going to do advertising across trying to geo-target versus where the product was actually being distributed, because we had one retailer. And now, from a media point of view, you know I can't go do big TV, even didn't have the money, but on top of that, I didn't have the distribution. So if I go and try and spend television money like they had in the US, when you have one distribution point through ASDA, you build demand, but nobody can find it. So it's a waste of money. So instead, we're like, let's try influencer marketing. Let's see what we can do with influencers. So again, we were taking a look, want to have a test and learn mentality, and we decided to work with one of the actual platforms that helps you find influencers, because we wanted to get a bit of scale. So with 5,000 pounds, how could we do work with a couple of different people and get them trying the brand? And remember, everyone's still stuck at home. It's not a traditional time to go through this. At that point in time, we actually chose to work with Tribe. So with 5,000 pounds, we put a brief into the software, into the platform. There are tons of these now. This is the image that came up when I Googled it. But again, back when I was doing this in 2021, there weren't as many choices. Now I feel like it's becoming a bit more niche, and I've worked with some of the other ones like Takumi, and I've worked with Vamp. But the very first one I tried was Tribe. Now, what we were trying to do is take 5,000 pounds and see if we could build some kind of endorsement and get people talking about Jim Beam Peach, and see what we could do. So here's what we did. We had 5 influencers that actually accepted our brief and then met the metrics in terms of being able to do content that seemed to be a bit more in keeping with what we were looking for. Didn't have an under the legal drinking age, under 25-year-old group of people and followers. And we did a static post. And then the next one here I'll play for you is the piece of content that we did. That was a video that our content creator did. And there's no sound. It's her telling you she's stuck at home. Are any of my videos going to have sound, guys? Don't worry, the power outage didn't interrupt that. Brilliant, thank you. Shall we start?
I get to know how I feel inside, 'cause I didn't take you there. No. Oh baby, get out my head, get out my head, get out my head.
There we go. So this is a disaster class. It didn't really work for us. I've got to tell you, we didn't see a huge amount of metrics. We had 5 influencers pick up, and they all did one piece. And it was at the same time, because I'm a really big believer in testing and learning, and we wanted to get some metrics. We actually worked with a really great partner called Automated Creative, and I'm not just saying that because some of them are sat right in front of me and they're here watching this. But no, they basically work on creative optimization. So we took the money we were spending on our ad, and then we took the influencers, and we put it through their dashboard, and we actually got insights across it to see which one was actually driving the most engagement, the view-through rates, and the messaging that was resonating. Because Automated Creative's secret sauce is that they took my ads and they were able to actually change the messaging. So then we could see kind of like cream floats to the top. We could see what kind of messaging was actually getting the biggest interaction and engagement. And when we did this, actually, we boosted and put into some of the creator content as well, the actual into the mix, into the ads. And then this is what we knew, that basically, the disaster class, 4 out of the 5 pieces of content didn't really perform for us. It just didn't do it. It was static posts, or they were carousels. There was people who were doing content that was completely unrelated to drinks, completely out of their kind of content messaging to be talking about Jim Beam. We didn't get any organic reach. Boosted content still, of course, drove very low engagement with their audiences. And the content, of course, disappeared, never to be seen again. The ads did perform best. So what did I learn? We were seduced by the actual scale of the audience. We were looking for content creators who had the biggest amount of impressions, and we weren't really looking deeply into what their content was and where we were going to actually fit with their audience. I mean, in hindsight, now you're like, what? You should have. We were like, let's give it a go. They made a cute pitch. Let's give them a box and see what happens. We were not using the right metric. So some of our content and what they were talking about, asking them to talk about our brand was really irrelevant. And then the last piece was we did one and done, right? So we got them to post a piece and then we were never seen again on their page. So their audience was like, maybe scrolled by it, didn't see it. So what could have been stronger is if we'd actually built a relationship with them. So learning from that, I think even the hindsight I would have done is the one piece of content that I played the video, that lady called Sandy Makes Sense, she actually does travel stuff. We probably should have invited her to go to Kentucky to the actual distillery and had her do a deeper piece in talking about the brand and then like a really more authentic, my trip to the distillery. So again, good learning opportunity. So I left the world of spirits for a little bit, went and worked on some wine and craft beers, and then I came back in, and for the last almost 2.5, 3 years now, I've been working on Havana Club. Now, when I first joined this brand, I was already working for the company that owns it, Pernod Ricard, and everybody in the company was like, oh my God, that's such a cool brand. They do such amazing collabs, all the people they work with, the partnerships, the influencers. Honestly, I didn't feel cool enough. I have to say that was like imposter syndrome, rearing its ugly head. I had to Google who Skepta was the first time they said we work with Skepta. Okay, that's how uncool I am. I also, though, in my defense, and at that time, had 2 small children, and I was watching Coco Melon more than I was anything else. So I don't know how to sign wheels on the bus from its beginning to end. Basically, though, we came into the brand, and these are the kind of things we were doing. So that was the piece of a kind of partnership, collab, and influencer piece work. Does anybody recognize who those guys are? Who's inside of it? Yes, well done. Yeah. Fantastic. It's probably because it was on shelf for a while that he might still have bottles. That's why this is the disaster class, because sometimes things don't go exactly according to plan. But it's Hetty 1 and it's Ming Savannah is actually the model. So we had 2 people in there. It's art directed by the co-founder of Places and Faces. Does anybody know Places and Faces, the brand? This is my street culture consult right here. I didn't plant you in the audience. You're like the one person in that row I didn't plant. But basically, these were like Cisse, who's the co-founder, actually art directed the film. There's another piece, if you Google it, just for fun. It's called Places, Faces, Aliens. Watch it. It's absolutely brilliant. The artistic art film is phenomenal. But again, it's this kind of approach to the brand that we had been taking was very much if you knew, you knew. We weren't really telling a lot of narrative. If you recognized that it was Hetty 1, you knew. But it was not a particularly, we didn't leverage his presence. We didn't get the influencers that were here to be actually really actively talking about the brand, even in their own way, in their own style. We just basically shot a piece of content and dropped it into our media plan and kind of left it there. So I guess you can probably see where the hindsight 2020 piece is going to come from. But we also had a challenge that we had this is a limited edition bottle that came out in June, and we needed to sell through by October because we had another limited edition coming out for Christmas. We had a very short window to drive a lot of sales. And so we did a very artsy, artistic movie, and it didn't drive the performance. At that point in time, we weren't just doing those kind of work with influencers. This is what our grid looked like at the time. We were doing work with Black Eats. Does anybody know the Black Eats Food Festival? It's fantastic. New dates are about to be announced. It's definitely, but again, it's not particularly well branded. We do quite a bit of work with Rinse FM. Anybody listening to Rinse FM know about Rinse FM? Urban radio here in London. This is a collab bottle that we did. Here's an event that was really fun and cool, but you all missed. And that was that was what the grid was doing, unfortunately, which I kind of think is, it's fun. It sets a bit of a vibe. It says what the brand's doing, but I don't think it's engaging, and it doesn't make you feel like you're part of it. So what did we have to do? Again, it was this brand that was very much if you know, you know. And what we wanted to do for the last couple of years, or last couple of years that I've been working on, is really give the brand a bigger voice. So we've been working, like I said, with Cisse, with pretty big audience numbers, fairly well-known influencer, really active in culture, and then trying to really make them become part of our community. Now, when I say community, though, people on this stage have been meaning community that follows my pages and comes into my app. What I mean by community is actually a human community. We are building relationships with our influencers so that we get them to come to our events again and again. So Cisse did that event for us, but he was actually the DJ at the next case study I'm going to show you about. We're trying to actually really connect with them as humans and find the authentic stories. I know that's an overused word, but really to connect with them and to make the brand more human and more real. And then this is the next brand. This is one of our larger influencers, and then we work with a really small supper club called All Roads. Again, if you're here in London and you need something cool to do, you should check them out. This happens to be one of our best performing pieces of content in our grid in the first quarter of the year.
I'm Malika Green, founder of All Roads. I'm Jamaican, born in Leeds, raised in London.
I'm Shaquille Kaba. My mum is English and Welsh. And my dad is an immigrant from Sierra Leone, Freetown. According to Malika, I'm also Jamaican as well.
So All Roads is a brand. What we do now is currently operate supper clubs in businesses that are closed on Sundays. We've all worked in hospitality for years in all various positions. We want for everyone to have the whole experience. So drinks are just as important as music. Lighting is as important as everything else. Like the whole environment is important to us.
When I first started bartending, there was not a lot of black bartenders at all. But then once you do find your people, you know you're good. I'd say also as well, you look at the higher positions.
So I will cut it a bit short, is I think another couple of seconds, but our grid was full of static posts. We weren't driving engagement on the brand. We had built an amazing community, but we weren't actually using it to talk about our brand, and we weren't actually inserting we were trying to basically brand stamp a little bit, but by doing it in a really hashtag Havana Club kind of way. And while we had these influencers, had a lot of credibility, we were super active in culture, and let's face it, we were really cool. We weren't really working well to optimize, and we weren't really seeing, we basically weren't seeing our brand grow. You know, I feel like we were talking to ourselves a little too often sometimes. So taking on board that learning, what did we learn? We needed to really talk about format. Just plastering our grid with statics and showing pictures of our influencers wasn't going to cut it. We couldn't take our content and just use every piece of content as a boosted post or an ad. Depending on how we were buying those kind of meta ads or if we're boosting content, there's a very different ROI on the type of content that we were using. So for example, that piece that I showed you, we did some static posts with All Roads. It doesn't have any organic reach, nothing happens. We did a piece of content that was a partnership with Black Eats, Havana Club, and with the bar, the All Roads Supper Club, and it drives amazing organic reach. And the difference is it's a real story, isn't it? It has a human angle, and we're talking to their audience with a topic that's relevant to them. And I think it's relevant, well, it's a hospitality business, so there's clearly a reason for us to be there as well, as an alcohol brand. So the content becomes more creator-led, so that we're more authentic, and again, just trying to tell really great stories, because I think that's what people want. So last one, because you've all sat with me, my third example of kind of working with influencers, completely different than what we had been doing on the brand. So we're trying to get our grid, doing much better content when it comes to kind of always on social. But we had, again, another Christmas edition come out last year. And this one did have a much bigger budget behind it. And we had this unknown Canadian jeweler, Canadian by coincidence, I did not pick this guy, but he's known as #the Goldsmith. And Jonathan Rackshaw comes in and delivers this kind of design for our brand. Our PR agency invites 250 influencers and kind of media and press to the event. And let me show you what that looked like.
no gold is not in her. She's a diamond under her. Wanna lay it down, I'm trying my heart. Don't I know gold is not in her.
You have to wait to see what 2025 is, because there's a hint in there, and I have to stop it before I show you. So, a different animal, but we basically did not pay for 80 influencer posts. If you picked up on that metric, we had over 80 hits in terms of influencers talking about our brand. We had actually only paid 5 influencers to be there. And it was 5 influencers that we picked not to do creative content for us. They were not content creators. They were literally there just to be there, because we were trying to create an event that people wanted to come to and they wanted to talk about. And that is actually what drove our biggest share of conversation. I swear I did not make that grid up just for good metrics. It is actually the best performing activation that the brand had done in the last kind of, I think, 8 to 12 months. Comparatively, because I've spent more on advertising, this delivered better results for us. We earned influencer content by creating an atmosphere that they wanted to come and hang out with us and talk about our brand. And we had people here like Leomi Anderson, and I'm not going to go through the whole list and read it to you because there's me standing between you and I in the bar right now. But it was one of the best events. I was walking around saying to everybody, I'm so not cool enough to be here. I felt like such a mom. And it was, but it was really cool. Everybody was so lovely. We had earned media. We had, the Daily Mirror, all sorts of press pick it up, Grazia magazine. It was covered in the fashion pages. And it was really good until I got this text. And I was like, oh, shit. This was one of my disaster class learnings. There really was somebody there who was one of our influencers who had actually had an OnlyFans page. And I'm a bit like, I'm not a prude. I was like, oh, who cares? But I didn't know. And the part that actually stopped me was that I didn't know. Because it was something that, in hindsight, we should have done a better job vetting the guests. We just need to know when you're working with influencers, know who you're working with. And that, for me, was one of those kind of big learning opportunities. In hindsight, too, on this one, we had a fairly simple narrative, because I said it was a goldsmith who designed a gold bottle. It's pretty straightforward. But actually, when you go back in our content, there's actually the bottle that was for sale on the shelf, and then there were a bottle. This is actually a gold-plated metal label that was actually sent to the influencers as a seeding gift to some of the media, part of their invite. It was a little bit confusing in the content. Maybe most people don't notice it, but I know that's not the bottle that you could buy. But what I was driving was actual results and awareness of that bottle. So I think we need to simplify that. And the other thing is what I learned was, of the influencers that I had had paid to be there, some of them did create their own content and talked about that they were at the event. I didn't ask them to, but they did it themselves as well. And we didn't pre-think boosting. So I didn't want to, because I was like, I'm going to have to prepay everybody to boost all their content, and what if I don't like it? I'm not going to boost it. So it was not part of the contract. But then when they created something I liked and I wanted to go back and boost it, it's a problem. So I should actually start saying to people, I'm not sure I'm going to boost it, but I want a right of refusal. If you produce something I like, I will boost it and I'll pay an extra fee. So again, one of those things we learned, we know now, moving forward, progression over perfection. So what we could have done it, actually I did like this one. We did smash it. We actually drove sales. We sold out of the bottle by the end of December, so we absolutely smashed the results. We leveraged our community a little bit, but we could have done a much better job with our actual human community. Again, this isn't my online community. The humans that have been working, we have a huge creative community of people who've been working on the brand, and I think we're going to do a much better job next time using people that we have that human relationship with. And then we hadn't considered if any channels should exclude users for consideration. So, my key points when I'm starting to go into the next year's campaign and looking at my next fiscal is I always start with why. That's one of my favorite books as well, always start with why. So why am I engaging with influencers? What is the objective of what I need to do with them? Am I just creating branded content? Am I trying to reach their audience? Am I amplifying? I just noticed a typo as well. You like that, audiences? Amplify a campaign. Am I trying to be active in culture effectively? And why are they going to care about my brand? And then more importantly, why are they going to remember my brand? Because I can insert my drinks brand into a lot of different places, but I don't know if anybody's ever going to remember. So So that's it. Thank you so much. Hopefully, well, actually, maybe you can all tell me in a LinkedIn comment if you, reach out to me. Do I have material next year on how not to do a presentation, a disaster class on my disaster class? But thank you so much for having me on the stage.